The discussion of transgender inclusion, specifically trans athletes competing in sports, has become ground zero in the culture wars going on across the country. Here to talk about it is the first openly transgender NCAA Division I athlete, swimmer, educator, and activist, Schuyler Bailar.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me.
We are honored to have you. Listen, as a swimmer myself, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank you for your activism. So, because you're here, let's dive into it, no pun intended. What was it like for you to be the first openly transgender Division I athlete? And tell us about some of the obstacles you faced on that journey.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, first of all. I would say, it's very difficult to summarize my experience in a sentence or two. I think a lot of it was very lonely. That's a word that comes to mind often. I didn't see a lot of people like me, and that was something that almost stopped me from even competing in the first place, because I didn't know that being myself and also doing my sport was possible. But of course, I found out that it was. And so it not only was lonely, but it was also very empowering because I got to be myself and do what I love.
Good for you.
You know why you're so authentic? Because you went to GDS, Georgetown Day School. I'm a fellow hopper as well. The grasshopper is our mascot. And I have to, Ketanji Brown Jackson's daughter goes to our school, so I just wanted to say fellow hopper, hello. All right, let's talk about trans female swimmer Lia Thomas. She's been in the news a lot. She's become the focal point really about this debate, competing in women's sports. Why do you think that is? And do you have any idea what this has been like for her? I know you can't speak for her, but sort of narrate us for what you think she's feeling.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing I want to say that I think we miss often, Lia has been talked about everywhere. Lia is a real person.
Yes.
Lia is a very kind person. She's compassionate. She is such a joy to be around. I'm actually a friend of hers, and I've known her for a little while now, even since before her transition. She's just a really good person. And nobody's reporting on her beyond her swimming and kind of recognizing that she's a whole person. So that's the first thing I want to say. The next thing is that, again, while I can't, like you noted, speak for Lia, I want everybody to imagine what it would be like for a moment to be her, right? Imagine what it would be like to just want to be yourself and do what you love and have the entire world have something to say about it, and a lot, mostly negative things to say, right? Not only just the world, but you've got some of your teammates saying that they don't want you there. You've got really powerful people within the swim community, a community that's carried you through your whole life, telling you that they don't want you there. How do you get up in the morning and go to practice? Right? 20 hours a week spending in the pool. How do you get up and go to practice every day knowing that people don't want you there? Imagine the amount of resilience that it takes for her to just show up at practice, much less show up at nationals, much less be able to compete and then even win one of her events.
Schuyler, thanks for being here. So we want to stick on Lia for a second. What do you say to people who think it's unfair for trans women like Lia to compete in women's sports and that they just want to even the playing field? What would you say to someone like that?
There's several things I would say, and I cannot say all of it right now, but a couple things. So the first thing to recognize is that most of these people who are saying something negative about Lia or saying something negative about her participation in sports, these people are saying that they are fairness advocates within women's sports. Most of these people have never been to a WNBA game. They are not watching the WNHL. They are not advocating for equal pay for women professional athletes. They are not advocating fiercely in the streets, protesting against the rampant sexual abuse that women athletes experience, right? These people are not fairness advocates until a trans woman wants to play. And I think that's really important to recognize. The second thing to recognize is that there's a lot of different ways that people show up in sports, and the fact that people say that they want to have a quote level playing field, this concept is elusive at best. There is no such thing as a level playing field. Sports are based on the fact that everybody interacts differently in sports, right? And there is biodiversity everywhere within sports, including within cisgender women. And when we try to start policing whose body is considered quote woman enough, right? We actually police all women. And people totally miss that fact. This attempt to enforce a policing of women's bodies in order to exclude trans women polices all women's bodies. At what point is a girl too tall, too fast, too strong, too quote unquote masculine to then be accused of being transgender and potentially considered quote not woman enough? Again, this polices all women's bodies, and people are missing that.
Good point.
I mean, we've talked a lot, and first of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate your sentiments on this. We talk a lot about, you know, the people that do want to talk about this issue. And I always say, I always want to enter in any conversation like this with somebody that has good faith. And when it comes to somebody like Lia, I always ask the person before we start talking, can you name another female swimmer? And they usually cannot, because this is the only issue they care about, and they don't care about women swimming at all. So I appreciate you saying that, brother.
Well said.
With that said, the NCAA had a policy on trans swimmers, and then they changed it months before Lia competed in the finals. So what do you think about this, and what rules, because we do need rules, what rules do you think should be in place for trans women to compete as fairly as possible?
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing to note is that we had a policy in place since about 2010, 2011 that included trans women that required them to have 1 year of testosterone suppressants and estrogen therapy before they competed on the women's team. Lia abided by these rules, actually more than twice the amount of that. She had been on 2+ years of hormone suppressants before she began competing on the women's team. That rule worked. We saw that working. We did not see any trans women domination in sports. In fact, like your note about can anybody even name another woman swimmer, most people cannot name more than one transgender woman who has competed in sport, much less a transgender woman who's competed and won in a national or international competition. There's only about 10 in the entire world over the past 15 or so years, right? So this concept of, quote, trans women domination is completely incorrect. It is not based on any facts. So we had a policy that worked. The fact that the NCAA changed it right before Lia was beginning to compete at conferences and at nationals, that's no coincidence, right? That's a lot of political pressure on them to change that, to, quote, save women's sports. But again, in reality, going back to my earlier point, the exclusion of trans women is going to be the thing that degrades and potentially destroys women's sports, not the inclusion of trans women.
Schuyler, your voice is so needed in this discussion today. I want to thank you. We thank you for being here and just being so transparent about your journey. To learn more about Schuyler, go to his Instagram at Peak Man Ray, and also you got to check out his book. OB is Man Enough, wherever books are sold. We'll be right back. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Go Hoppers.
Thanks.
Thank you.